Hey everybody. Again, we are going to get a bit more philosophical in terms of discussion. More philosophical topics are really more the ones I enjoy discussing. Though I'm not saying I don't enjoy all the questions I get, but particularly the ones that kind of deal with some of the core issues of philosophical thought as they relate to topics of religion. This video is it's going to be a video response to a good friend of mine here on YouTube who raises up the issue of free will in heaven. And as usual, I'm open to discussion of any theological or philosophical issue, so long as I have the time and interest, and the questions are asked with at least a bit of intent that my view is going to be respected. In short, I don't like it like others in the past have asked me things and they really weren't actually interested in discussion. They just kind of wanted to kind of trap me and get into a debate, but I don't think this is the case here. I do think these are valid theological questions, so I will address them. So my friend here gave me some questions, and I'll just read them verbatim. I have two things I would like to say about the Christian heaven. If we do still have free will, then there is still no guarantee we would stay eternally in heaven. Satan and 1/3 of the demons were cast out. What would stop us from getting dumped if we disobeyed? 2. If we do not have free will, then that would explain how we would be able to stay eternally. But who would want that? It would be tantamount to being a zombie slave. What good is heaven if there is still a price to be paid for it? No freedom. So, those are the questions that are being asked. I would also add, though it's not explicitly stated, I think it basically contains an ingrained proposition, or perhaps just more of a dangling conclusion, about the morality and of God's character. And I guess I'll just kind of put that together here. If God forces people to worship Him in heaven, then He is not good, because we should be able to have free will in choosing to worship Him. So I'll just start off here. My response to that conclusion, as well as would be the thesis for my video here, would be that I don't think God robs anybody of their choice to worship or be in unity with Him. I think free will is fairly well respected throughout the Bible, both for angels and humankind. The question then becomes, well, why does the Bible seem to imply that nobody in heaven, after all the enemies and foes of Christ are removed, fall away or rebel against God? Does God not give free will to the people in heaven? My answer would be yes, we do have a free will in heaven, but there are some common fundamental misunderstandings about free will. Philosophers and others have recognized this, and they deal with this as it comes up in their different fields of study and work. And I would like to take the time to actually recommend a book I read back in my days of studying philosophy. It's called Riddles of Existence: A Guided Tour of Metaphysics. It's co-authored by Theodore Sider and Earl Coney, I think that's how it's said. It's a good book, which was one of the first I read initially in my studies. It addresses the issue of free will as well as many other topics which deal directly or indirectly with religion. It's also not a book really given from a religious perspective. It's not really a Christian book per se. I don't actually really know what the authors believe. I just know it's a really helpful book when studying these issues in philosophy. But back to the discussion. I guess I'll start with the first piece of my argument here, which is about God giving people the choice in whether they enter into a relationship with Him or not. I do believe this is the case, and it is supported in Scripture. In fact, it's hard not to see it. The Bible's overflowing with invitations to be part of God's kingdom. So I'll just list a few here. Matthew 11:29-30. Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Okay, and then John 6:37. All that the Father giveth me shall come to me, and him that cometh to me I will in no wise cast out. And towards almost the very end of the Bible here, Revelations 22:17. And the Spirit and the bride say, Come. And let him that heareth say, Come. And let him that is athirst come. And whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. And back in the Old Testament, I'll give you an example. It's actually fairly illustrative, so I think it's a pretty good example. And that's in Joshua 24:15. And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And again, that's really just a sample of all the invitations to make the choice of God or not. So I conclude that in God's plan for all eternity, God does respect somebody's free will in deciding whether they want to have, a part with God or not. Now, moving along to my next point here, in addressing the nature of free will. Before I start, I just want to say, whether you agree with my position or not, please think these concepts through. These are not always easily understood, so just, take some time and consider what I put forward here. I'm going to give you a couple illustrations about free will. Say you are, you're held up at gunpoint by a thug on the street. He says he'll shoot you if you don't hand over your wallet to him. So you willingly hand over the wallet. Now, was this an act of free will? Well, ultimately, yes, because you carried through the action. However, if the circumstances were different, you wouldn't have done it. Though you had the final say in your actions, it is something you did by, pure compulsion. To most people, this is a rank violation of your will. It's a crime. It's not something good. Okay, now that's one example. Now, I'm going to give you another example, kind of of the opposite. Say you purchase a car you like. The car is very beautiful, very fast, very good handling. But also there's something else about it you didn't notice when you bought it. It's magical. It transforms at will, no matter what kind of driving you want to do or what preference you have in terms of look or mechanics or amenities. It can just magically transform to adapt to your wants and wills. It also never breaks down. Now, in terms of free will, you love the vehicle, with all your heart. The question is, would you ever get rid of it? Why would you? It has everything you could possibly want in a vehicle. It has a compulsion on your will to want it. Is that a violation of your free will? The example is similar to the first, except the second example is desirable. Few people would care if they were compelled to do or want something that is in tune with their desires in a positive way. So my question would be, if God had the same effect as this car did in the example on somebody who has a relationship with them, is that wrong in some way? And, how so? If God gives people the desires of their hearts that they want, they would never want to leave Him, how really could that be a bad thing? But there are, other common examples in, everyday life, things which in which our will is compelled, and we don't usually complain too much, such as, say the need to engage in entertainment, whether it be reading, music, playing some kind of game, or just, being with friends. We feel compelled to take part, and at the end of the day, we're fulfilled by it. We don't usually feel robbed or cheated in having these desires, except maybe, when they go unfulfilled. But, all in all, we rather have the desires than not. So, my point is, I believe in eternity, God will give us all the desires of our hearts, which will make it so we never ever have the compulsion to rebel against Him. Any kind of impetus to do such a thing simply will not exist. I don't find this challenging in the least in the ability of a supreme being, let alone one along the lines of, being omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, etc. Hopefully everybody's getting the point I'm making here. If anybody takes a moral issue with a God which fulfills the desires of people He has unity with, in a way that keeps them for all eternity, I really don't know what to say. I just really don't see an issue here at all. And really, I can't really think of the love of God being anything less. If He's truly loving and all-loving, that seems naturally what I would really expect. I will address one caveat about the angels losing their estate in heaven. Somebody might argue that because they lost their estate, we will be able to. I don't think this argument is ultimately, persuasive. However, it does warrant a closer look at things. But I don't think there is logically anything which, solidly makes a case against anybody losing their estate in the kingdom. First off, though the angels are higher beings than people, and they were in heaven as their estate, I don't equate them identically as redeemed humans. We have different natures and different experiences. Ultimately, I think both humans and angels were given a free will choice. The angels, as we see in the example of Satan, chose not to fight his desires to be worshipped and take the seat of God, and as a result, he made a free will choice to rebel. I don't know if all the angels rebelled for that exact same reason, but I believe they all had desires they chose to follow rather than remain in unity with God. You might ask the question, what is stopping the angels that didn't rebel in the past from rebelling, later in the future? And that's a good, reasonable question. Now, my answer would be, and this is mainly speculation, I'm not really relying on biblical arguments. I'm not saying they can't be biblically supported or there are no biblical arguments, but this is just really me thinking here, what could be a possibility. There are 2 points I can really put forth to consider. First, where the angels were before the rebellion and where they are now, where they will be in the future, are kind of different places in their development. Just like as we, go through life, we learn and see different things. So, as a result, they were able to observe and learn, things over time. They were able to witness the fall of man and judgment of the other angels. And I'm not saying that God is going to keep them by fear. I actually don't think He will. But I think the angels that remain will have, observe the tragedy and futility of choosing to be of unity with their Creator, simply for vain pride or the ability to take part in some other activity which was prohibited. It's like throwing away, say, a Porsche for an Aries K car. It's just a silly tragedy at the end. I think the angels that remain will realize this, and if they have any desires in their heart which were compelling them towards rebellion, they'll be able to fight fight those desires after witnessing, the heartbreak of the angels who made the tragic decision. The second point I want to put forth is that I don't think the experience of heaven is the same for the angels before the fall of Satan and after. I think God will increase His fulfillment of desire over them in the form of an irresistible grace which will, fulfill their desires. I don't think I have any reason to not assume this. There are many parts in the Bible which point towards the majesty and glory of God increasing more and more as His plan unfolds. So, to conclude, I believe God respects the free will of all His created humans and angels, but this is a decision that is made in the testing period before the next age of eternity. After that decision is made, God will keep His created beings by an irresistible grace by putting the hearts of His people and angels an ever-increasing desire to love, serve, and enjoy God, which will make rebellion against God an impossibility and a non-issue. This, coupled with the experience that the saved humans experience on earth, knowing what sin is against God and their fellow man, the desire to escape it, followed by the redemption and forgiveness, followed by the new desires Christ puts in the heart by regeneration and new birth, which is from calling on Him in faith for the free gift of salvation. It'll create a relationship which can never be broken. As Christ put in John 10:28, "And I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand." Okay, so, thanks for listening, guys. Really do enjoy discussing these theological issues with, Christians and non-Christians alike. I hope I was able to articulate my views succinctly and clearly. If you have any follow-up questions, you can leave a comment. But if there is, any really strong disagreement, I really don't want to argue too much. I stand where I stand on this, but, if there are some minor points that can be validly addressed, or if we really think there's a good, genuine argument against me in my position, then, by all means, leave a comment or a PM or response video. Yeah. Again, love all the discussion and banter we've been trading. Yeah. Take care and God bless.